everybody. Welcome to the Sharon and Joe show. My name is Sharon.
Hi, everybody. Happy Memorial Day. My name is Joe.
I just want to say thank you and God bless anybody who's listening who served in the military or has relatives or friends. Joe and I are very grateful and we appreciate your service.
Yeah, absolutely, you guys. And what we can do as thrivers and survivors is think about maybe not necessarily the physical warfare of our veterans and what they put themselves into arm's reach, but the spiritual aspect of that. And since it's Memorial Day, I think it's important to remember what happened so we don't forget. Now, as I say that, Sharon has been just evolving the channel into speaking more, especially with Sharon and I, about the solution, about living our lives outside of this one thing that like we centered our whole lives around. And we want to talk more about the solution, which is to us, God, and the spiritual warfare that we were in.
Well, I think also when I began the channel, I really had recently learned about narcissism. I was kind of learning it while I was doing the channel. And it was such a shock to me. It was so new to me. I just couldn't believe it. And I felt like, oh my gosh, like I have this really important information that I have to get out to people because I was so confused and I would have loved to have heard. Now, granted, obviously, you'd have to be looking this up on YouTube and stuff, but still, I would have loved to know earlier what was going on. So now, Joe and I, thank God, are on the other side. We're not 100% there, but we're working there. We see the light at the end of the tunnel. And just like at the beginning, I knew people need to hear about narcissism. I want people to hear about the fact that you can get through this. You can live. You can be happy. You can smile. You can look up at the sky and smile. Like you can breathe.
Yeah, outside of this one event that happened in our lives that was for somehow, some way, shape, or form, we tied ourselves up emotionally, financially, and all this stuff. And it was just one, I don't know how to say it, it's a shitstorm.
Well, I think like to some degree, like, yeah, like you feel stuck. Like I cannot get out, but there's ways to get out. And that could be another video for tonight. It's just, you can get out there. Everybody listening has reason for hope. And I tell you this because Joe and I, we were incredibly unlikely to get away from the narcissist.
The chances were slim enough.
It's a miracle, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Like, I know for myself that God did for me what I couldn't do for myself. And what I found as I was growing spiritually in my relationship with God is the more I stay focused on the problem, like I stay sick.
Yeah.
And it's important, like, to eventually get to a point where after all the thousands of hours that I was spending learning about narcissism, accepting that like this exists, learning about myself and the role I played and how I got to that point was important. It's just as important to talk about our lives and not to empower this one thing that I was entangled with to be the focus of my life, whether consciously or not, for the rest of my life, because this life is so much bigger than that one thing that happened.
They don't deserve that. You know what I mean? It's like, have you ever heard someone say, don't let someone live in your mind rent free? It's kind of like that. Joe and I are together in a relationship. The absolute last thing that I want to do is have our exes be involved in our relationship. So it's not the two of us, it's the four of us. No, I don't. I want to move forward past the narcissist.
Yeah, Sharon and I were coming up with like a difficult, like we were having difficulty finding a topic. But the one thing that I can say is like the spiritual warfare part of it was very real for the both of us, and I'm still in it. I think like God tends to whisper, and now where before he'd whisper and whisper until I'd have to hit a brick wall. And what I heard from him this last week and a half or 2 weeks was, I called God Dad because the relationship that I want with my Creator is a father-son relationship. I believe in Jesus. I'm a very just imperfect person. But my relationship has grown. And what I heard him saying was like, suit up. Put on your armor and suit up.
And this was recently, right? Like a week or so ago?
Mm-hmm. My youngest son is newly sober. You guys
His oldest son.
I'm sorry. Thank you, honey. My oldest is newly sober. You guys know I've been in recovery for a little while. and he needed help. So I was like, all right, buddy, like if you're serious, if you want this, then I'm here for you. Sharon was kind enough to like kind of let it go, and she prayed a lot. We talked about it a lot. That could be for another video. But I heard God say, because my oldest is connected to the narcissist, and these things I believe are so foul. And you won't hear counselors and psychiatrists talk about spiritual warfare when they say no contact, and then they suggest, if at all possible, don't even associate with the people that they associate with. That's how toxic these things are. And he brought some of that energy back into the house. And I love my son. I don't want to see him die from alcoholism. And it was just, I heard Dad tell me, Joe, put on your armor. I want you. I want you in this battle, because it's ancient, and it's not just one person, one face. And I feel honored to like put my sword and my shield on. I'm not scared anymore. I still suffer the consequences of CPTSD and what happened to me. But I have my partner, my warrior, right next to me, somebody that I trust my life with, is Sharon. And Sharon had told me like a week before that, she said, Joe, we're almost towards the end as far as like wrapping up the finalities legally of the narcissist. But the one word that she heard from Dad was endurance. And you put those two together, and it's just like, shit, man, I'm still in spiritual warfare. But it's an honor to be in that warfare, trying to fight. Like, Sharon has prayed for me, you guys, sincerely. Like, not just pray, but have conversations with Dad every day, all day for me. And her prayers, like, have reached his ear, and he has taken care of me because of her. So I wanted to talk about, screw the narcissist. Let's talk about the spiritual warfare. Is anybody still in it somehow, shape, or form? See, I thought once it went no contact, it was over. Well, when you have kids, it's a little bit different. And that energy travels and it carries over. And it's just, without God, like, I'm pretty much helpless.
I just want to state, just up front, Joe and I believe that when you're dealing with a narcissist, you are quite literally in a spiritual battle. It's a war outside of what you can see. There's guys, I always believed in God. I would have told you I believed in God at any point in my life. But I recognize now that I really didn't. For me, and this sounds horrible, I wasn't doing this on purpose. God was Santa Claus. He worked for me. I wanted something. I was scared. I'd talk to Dad, God.
Help me, please help me.
Yes.
This is like, get me out of this mess or this mess I'm in.
But I never, at the same time, I would do this now, but I never did it then. If something good happened to me, I would never thank God. Yeah. It was just, oh God, I need this. Like he's my servant. And it's exactly the opposite. And so when you're dealing with a narcissist, evil is brought to your front door.
And there's stories, you guys, like there's stories, I didn't mean to cut you off, honey, where I could tell you, as far as the one I was with, there was a demon, like she had a demon attached to her since she was a little child. And the things she would do at nighttime in the middle of her sleep were just plain out, when I look back at it, scary as hell. I should have been scared shitless. Like, when it comes to like haunted things, this and that, like, I'm the dude at the movie theater saying, get the hell out of the house. Like that night, that minute, like don't stay there for another week. And if you heard Sharon, there were things that this dude did, like that were just pure out freaky, like just like, holy crap. So ours were definitely demonically influenced. I believe 100% you couldn't, 100% ours were. Now, I don't know about everybody else and this and that, but we have lived with this for 20 years.
Guys, and I get it.
Each.
I believe, just like Joe, after everything that I've gone through, everything I know Joe's gone through, everything I know some of you have gone through, and I know a lot of you agree with this as well, but for sure, I believe that you are dealing with a true demonic entity. Now, I don't know if the narcissist knows this. I'm not saying that they're purposely calling it.
Every single one of them
exactly.
are like possessed. What we're saying, ours were absolutely influenced the best.
There is true evil in our world, and getting away from evil like that is no joke. And because I think it's more powerful than us, right?
Yeah. You're as far as a human being versus like evil that has existed for God, since the beginning of creation, just about. As I said, I needed God for that, and he told me last week to put on your armor. Let's get going.
Yeah, he did. And you and I do that. Joe and I, we say, and I know I've said this on the channel a million times, we look at our life as like a triangle, right? So Joe and I are next to each other at the bottom, and God or Dad is at the top. Joe and I recently were talking to each other, and I said to Joe, you want to know something? The last 2+ years, or our entire relationship, I'll just say that, forget anything else, for our entire relationship, I mean, not just you and me, but other things that have happened during that time, I have listened to God on everything, whether or not I wanted to do it, whether or not I was scared to do it. I listened to God, and the life change that occurred because of that, I don't have the words for it. It's almost like I'm a different person now. After narcissism, after like getting through it, right? After getting out of it, my entire, it's almost like I'm a different person. God has blessed me with, I'm a different person. I'm a better person.
You're a better version. You're like a 2.0 instead of a 1.0. It's like you become a better person. I'm on my way. I think I'm on my way. I'm doing that. I definitely like spiritually, as far as gifts of discernment and wisdom, the experience that came with it are there. And I'm on my way to like going the next step up before I was absolutely demolished.
Let's talk a little bit, Joe, about hope. You and I have mentioned.
There's a difference when we say hope, though. Like, we definitely we have a different perspective on it. I think we mean the same thing. We get caught up in the words.
Yeah, that's true. There was something you said earlier. Now, what was it, helpless? Or I can't remember what you said.
So, for me, the irony of this whole thing is I had to look at my relationship that I was in, which was actually an entanglement with the ex. It was hopeless. Like, she was not changing. She was maladaptive. It just wasn't happening. It was hopeless. There was nothing. Just after 20 years of dealing with everything, when I got to that point of hopelessness, of my own accord, I'm nothing. I had to be desperate enough, because I say my tolerance for pain is very high, which is not good. So I could go a long time with torment. I had to be desperate enough to ask God for help. And it was through that hopelessness that I found hope, like in a real relationship with my creator and myself, as opposed to being in complete denial, being unconscious about my codependency with the narcissist. So I was hopeless in my relationship with them, but I was also like hopeless because there was a point where, this is what I thought, the parasite and the host, the only way it ends is when one of them dies. And I was going to die, or she was going to die.
Yeah, I felt that way too. I think a lot of people probably feel that way.
That's pretty hopeless. Now, there's a difference between hopelessness and helplessness. Yeah. There were certain things that I could do, and all the energy and the solution was focusing my relationship on my creator. It was through that, like the little things that I did have a little power over, that he came in and did the impossible, did for me what I could not do for myself.
Let me ask you this, Joe, because you and I have had different experiences in recovery. I did not call out to God. I didn't think of God. He came to me. Did you? Do you? So I was doing things. This is the weird thing, you guys. This is just a gift from God. I can't tell you like why else this would be. I didn't know God came into my life until a year later or so. Like I didn't know. But for some reason, I started doing things, like now, in retrospect. So God comes into my life, and I can tell you, like, it's a long story. I can tell you another video if you want to know, just, put it in the comments. But I didn't know, but something happened to me, and I started living very differently. So today, I look back, and I think, oh my gosh, that was, like, I was following what God told me to do when I had no idea that God was even involved in my life. So what about you?
See, I believe, like being in recovery, like from alcohol and drugs, the root cause of that was my selfishness. And what I mean by that was self-pity, self-condemnation, low self-worth, egocentric. Mine was different. I had to cry out to Dad, and he was there the whole time, but I had to humble myself enough to say I need help.
Did he hear you? Did you believe he heard you right away, or how did that work?
No, I every night I complain and bitch and moan and this and that. I always had a relationship with God when I first got sober. This is how cunning evil is. When I first got sober, I was 25 years old, and I had a spiritual awakening. I can explain that to you later, but
So it's kind of like that now again, right? You had another one.
yeah, absolutely. Then the narcissist came into my life,
Yeah.
and my relationship with God kind of dwindled away. So I always believed in God. It evolved to a really special relationship, but then was sabotaged by trickery and evil, and myself, my own bad decision making. But I cried out to God, and when I got back into the fundamentals of opening up the Bible and reading His Word, is really when things started to change. Now, everybody has a different conception or misconception of God. Everybody has a different understanding. I'm only speaking from spiritual experience, or from my experience, that when I started reading His Word again, is when I could hear Him talking to me as plain as day, in a very special way, like through His Spirit, His counselor, but I knew He was with me.
I always feel weird talking about this. Like I do, but I don't. Because I know not everybody believes this. And then I feel like I'm some Bible thumper. And Joe and I aren't trying to be that way. When I first started this channel, you guys, I was learning about narcissism. It was the biggest shock of my life. I couldn't believe it. I was so confused. And all of a sudden, I had this answer, like something really important. Now I knew. And I wanted to tell other people, like, look, there's this thing. It's real. Maybe this is what's happening in your life. I was so confused. So having this answer, I felt compelled to share it. I kind of feel that now too, but in a different way. So, I get how other people feel. Like I do. I'm just trying to say, like, from our experience.
It's a great start if you have a God of your misunderstanding, if you believe in something bigger than yourself.
Well, it's just like the reality, and I can tell you these things, Joe can tell you these things because they really happen. Like I can tell you what it's like to have a dog as a pet, right? Because I really have a dog. I can tell you God involved in our life actively where we have a relationship. It's not that God is Santa Claus and He gives me things. A real, true relationship with God, it will change everything in your life. Joe and I, and this is one of the reasons that we come on the channel together to talk to you guys. Because it's not just that we're male and female. It's because both of us have had this experience and we want to share it with you because it's very real.
You know, if you stay focused on the problem for long enough, you're going to stay sick. So eventually I evolved into, okay, gaslighting, smear campaigns, blah, 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 blah. I know it all. Like, that's fine. Then I started taking a look at what was my part of this thing, and that was a whole different spin. But that's when I truly started to grow. I was concerned. So many times, like at nighttime, like I'd be listening to different channels here and there. But there was a couple where I got the message like, yeah, if you have a Bible, open it up and read it. And I had my Bible upstairs. I had to be in enough pain, as goofy as that sounds, like open the darn thing up.
Well, what's weird? I've thought this way about the Bible before, or God too. I've heard the same thing as you, like, oh, you should read the Bible, or you should do this, and I would think to myself, no, like, no, because it's too,
I don't understand it. It's too big.
Well, I felt like it was too not boring. That's not the right word, but I didn't want. I felt like if I was reading the Bible, no, it was just like it was too. It wasn't enough for me, I guess is the best way for me to say it. Yeah, I didn't realize that that's 100% what I needed, but for me, I'd rather do something else.
And we're not pushing that. Like, we're saying what happened to us. Like, I have friends that aren't necessarily Christians, but they do have some kind of a working relationship with whatever that they believe in, whether they call it the universe or like Buddha, whatever. For me, it's Jesus. So we're not trying to push anything, but it was then that I heard Him, and I was like, okay, I'm not alone. Like, He's not like, I'm not this little ant in this world, and then take 15 steps back, and then there's universe, and then there's 50 billion universe. Like, God, our Creator, intimately knows each and every one of us. Like, I was that important to Him that He decided to save me out of all the people in the world.
I think really what it comes down to, what we're trying to get across, or what I am in this video, is consider that, Joe and I, we're pretty much, we see the light at the end of the tunnel. This happened for us. We went through hell, like literal hell. We went through hell. went through recovery, and we're still dealing with it, but we can see that light. This could happen to you. It really did happen to us. Joe called out to God. I didn't. So if you're in an entanglement with a narcissist right now and you think, I can never get out, maybe Sharon can get out, and then you have like a litany of reasons why I was able to get out, or maybe Joe could get out because he also has a litany of reasons. And I could say that about anybody. Like, for real, you guys. It was a miracle that Joe and I, both of us, that we got out. Forget everything else that happened, just getting out of these entanglements and being alive. It can happen to you. Hope is real. It just, guys.
It's just you have to direct your hope.
Yes, that's the whole thing with the channel. I tell you things that have really happened to me, and because they really happened to me, I know they can happen to you. And it's so important not to lose hope, because if you're hopeless, your life is over. There's nothing there.
Well, that's what the irony of it was for me, is that I had to be hopeless in the relationship that I was in order to find true, real, tangible hope. And God takes like the goofiest of us, the sickest of us. Like, I was in this damn thing for 20 years, went through affairs and money stolen and cars stolen and utilities off and kids. It's just it's hard to. You have to strip away that terminal uniqueness. Like, that happened to you, but like,
that's something I
I'm
used to do.
kind of, and it's just like, no, man, if you listen to my story or if you listen to Sharon, we're two different genders, two different backgrounds. Like, if we could do it, the message is anybody can do it.
Look, this is the reality, you guys. I used to believe I was like that. I would,
Terminal uniqueness?
I would hear somebody's story, and then I would say, yeah, but they had more money, they had more friends, they had more family, whatever it is, they had more of something that I didn't have. They could get out, I couldn't. The reality, you guys, and this is, just consider this. God, I feel like God like reached down, grabbed me by the ponytail and pulled me up. And without him, I wouldn't be out. And I was in, you guys, a really bad situation. I wasn't working. I was like a stay-at-home mom for 20 years. I gave up a career. I didn't have money. My ex was a compulsive gambler who stole money from the kids. I didn't have anything. And so there's no, but, guys.
What is anything after but?
You can say that, not me.
When I hear somebody say, yeah, but, I would say anything after but is bullshit.
But you went through the same thing that I did. It was different. We had different circumstances, but here we are. And both of us were saved the exact same way. So let's talk about that a little bit.
And let's talk about, like, Sharon, you mentioned about the God save me prayers. Please help me this. Please help me that before. Where now it's like, okay, what can we do for God? Like, it's not so much what can he do for us. Like, he's the head honcho. Like, what could he do for me? He spared me. When you serve and you feed his sheep, in my experience, there's a state of being that's called serenity and peace. It's not a feeling, it's a state of being that when you're serving and helping others, like, that gift is there. And it's a gift from God. I just mentioned, like, briefly, that because I went no contact with the narcissist a couple of years ago doesn't mean that I'm not in spiritual warfare. Like, the directions and message from Dad to Joe last week was put on your armor and be ready. And I'm not scared anymore. Before I was afraid. It was funny. You got a 6'2". I used to play football. I'm a big dude. And there's this little 5-foot thing that I'm deathly afraid of because she's capable of anything. Anything goes and nothing shocking. I'm not afraid anymore. I still get symptoms of CPTSD. Like, I have been anxious. Sometimes I can't sleep, but I'm not afraid. And if Dad said put in your armor, it's an honor to be given life and to breathe and to be a part of this battle, because I'm ready. Well, if God says I'm ready, I'm ready.
You guys, I went from a relationship where, like I said, God was Santa Claus to, like what Joe says, like God is such an important part of my life that I literally talk to him all day long. The first thing I do when I wake up is I go to this thing, dailyverses.net, and there's like a new Bible verse. I read that. I think about it. I meditate on it. I read Bible with Paris in the morning. Joe and I read Bible at night. Joe and I pray in the morning, sometimes during the day. Well, I'm always praying for Joe.
You guys, there's no bullshit. Like, she actually does. And it's not like prayer where it's a memorized prayer. It's conversations with our Father. And thank God Sharon's like that. The only thing that's saving my ass is that there's like a parallel connection between addiction, which I was addicted to alcohol and drugs, and recovery from narcissism. There is a parallel connection because I believe that there's addiction involved when you're dealing with a narcissist. If it wasn't for the program I'm in my own recovery, I wouldn't have much of a relationship with God. But I'm actively involved in my recovery, and that evolves around the solution, which is God. And with Sharon, it's like we're a pretty damn good, formidable team. We have our triangle. Dad's at the top, which you call God, and us are on the bottom. Now, we had children with these things. It makes me sick to my stomach. I slept next to it for almost 20 years. And when evil came into our lives, I think like with my son coming home, it's like he's connected to that narcissist, connected to that evil, that it's just very toxic, you guys. There's a reason why psychiatrists and counselors, they won't say anything about faith or religion. When you hear them say 99% of them agree, no contact across the board, then they say, as a matter of fact, try not to associate anybody that they associate with. What the hell does that tell you? I mean, they're not going to say they're demonically influenced or like it's emotion. When they say that, what do you know? Like, what kind of person do you know where you're told no contact and don't even talk to the people that they know if you can help it? That's pretty fricked up.
That's really messed up when you really think about it, what that truly means. But just to say, you've gone no contact, I've gone no contact. That is, I mean, I get it. Not everybody can do it, but God, if you can, that was a huge catalyst for change for me because because the narcissist, Joe and I, we believe that I feel weird saying this. I always say this, but I'm just going to say it. If you're dealing with a demon, they're never going to give up. They want to get you. They want to bring you down. They want to destroy you. So if you can just somehow recognize, okay, this is happening. This is the reality. The solution is finding God. And, Joe and I have been doing this for a while. So if I was listening to this, I'd be like, well, yeah, but you have this relationship with God. It was always, but this person has more money. This person has more friends. This person has more family. This person has more this person has a relationship with God. There's always a reason to say, but. However, like that one, the reality is this was the answer that Joe and I had. And I want you guys to know that you can, when I started off with God, like I told Joe, we've talked about this, in the last 2 years, I'll just say since our relationship, right? And it's not just like our relationship, it's everything in the last 2 years. I didn't always know I was doing this, but for whatever reason, personally, I believe it was a gift from God. I did what Dad wanted me to do, what God wanted me to do. I just did it, and no matter what. Even like Joe and I moving in together, these were intimidating things. Like, yeah, we're in a relationship, and that's awesome. But
There's some big steps that we had to take, and we could actually hear and feel our Father talking to us and like blessing.
But I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I have to tell someone to forget it. So I was saying, here we are now at this point, like towards like a stronger relationship with God. We didn't always have that. I didn't even know I was talking to God at the beginning. I didn't know, I guess not talking to him. I didn't know he was talking to me, but as things have evolved. And so that is an answer for you if you are struggling and you believe in God or you want to believe in God. Just take these baby steps. And I'm so sorry I interrupted you. So go ahead. I was going to forget that.
No, not at all. I'm following you, man. I'm listening. And on some point level, leave a comment if you yourself are still in spiritual warfare. For me, I am, because what I was dealing with was just the face, but what was behind that was so much bigger than just one person. And anything that's connected to the narcissist in any way, shape, or form, God bless my sons. Anything like that, like I can't forget, Memorial Day. I can't forget that sometimes it's difficult because I'm in a war that's much bigger than myself, and I'm not like some freak running around with the Bible. I'm just saying like that. What I was dealing with was cunning and powerful.
Joe and I hear what you're saying, Joe. Joe and I are just like honest. Like, we'll tell you like this is what I weigh. This is this. Like this is the reality. Like this really happened for us, the both of us, in completely different circumstances, different states, different genders, different everything. God was our answer. It just did. He saved us.
And instead of saying like right now, like how it's changed from God, please help me to God, what can I do for you? Now it's like, God, why me? Now it's like, thank you.
Yeah.
Like you want me to put on my armor and you believe in me that much? Like, thank you. I'm ready, man. I'm not afraid.
Well, consider it like this. Joe has mentioned that, dealing with his alcohol battle, he has found a lot of help in a support group. But I'm just saying, like when you first started the support group, you probably weren't thinking to yourself, oh, this is definitely my answer. But so like for you, if you are dealing with a narcissist and you're hearing us and you're like, well, I don't know, maybe, I don't think that's going to be my answer. All you need to know is that for us, it really was. And if you just consider, maybe, possibly, and then talk to God, just talk to him. Now, you guys, I often wonder how many times God spoke to me where I didn't hear it. Like it was just like,
Well, there's miracles every day, and how many I didn't listen to or see just because I had my eyes closed.
Exactly. And now I told Joe, there's not one time in the last probably year or longer that I haven't prayed to God and got a reply from him like quickly, like 10, 15 minutes or that evening, 100% of the time, because I've learned to hear him, to listen to him. So you don't know, like I wonder sometimes, because I think like red flags I ignored. I think that was like God, like hello, like you know what I mean, is like screaming in my face, and I'm just like doo.
That damn free will gets you every time.
Yeah. But now even like little whispers, I can hear him, and this. If this can happen to me, it can happen to you.
There's a sensitivity that we develop. Have you guys gotten that, like where you could, without being too like goofy, but have gotten like vibes like there's something not right or something's up here, or like
yeah, even if
Sharon
it's a bad thing, right? Like you'll be like, oh, like say you're walking down the street and you think, I don't like that person over there.
Learn to kind of like go with that, maybe cross the street or do whatever. You listen to your, I guess, gut instinct. And there's different names for God, and whatever the case is that building that was the most important relationship I could ever have in my life. Because Sharon may not be around one day that I have trouble. I can't get a hold of her. She's somewhere else. Like, who am I going to turn to? Who am I going to lean to?
Yeah, that doesn't offend me at all. Like, I understand that. Joe and I count on and help each other, rely on each other. But above that, there is no relationship with Joe without God.
God's not involved. Yeah. So everything...
It has to be the three of us.
We try to, and I fall short. I can tell you this, though, like, Sharon's for real. Like, she talks to Dad all day. We talk at night. Like, we talk to him at night. We read our Bible at night. Like, it's really cool, and I'm no saint. I was in a bad shape, you guys, as an alcoholic and an addict. It's real. And if we forget what we're dealing with, then we might think like, well, what's wrong with me? Or there's something wrong with me. No, it's just the way it is. Some of the most real things in this lifetime are things that you can't see.
Oh, absolutely. I've heard someone say that it's the real things that are real. I'm sorry, the things you can't see that are real. And then what you can see isn't permanent, isn't real. And I believe that. I hear that.
And there's many battles. Like the day that I finally got divorced from the narcissist, I got laid off at work. Then I got bad news medically. And it was just like, holy crap, I thought it was all over. And it's just like, no, now you get to be in a spiritual battle, but you have experience.
And you're working for God.
Yeah.
It's not like there's ever going to come a time where, and I used to think this, like, oh, it's my time now. Like, God's going to pamper me and give me whatever I want. I'm not going to have any problems because boo-hoo, poor me, I went through this horrible problem. It's, listen, and God's not mean like this, but listen, I got you out. You work for me, and it's an honor. But it's like in my daily life, I try to do what God tells me to do, not what Sharon necessarily wants to do.
In his divine wisdom, he knows that working for him doesn't mean like necessarily he's a king and I serve him. We're his children. He loves us so much that he knows it's through love, it's through service and helping others where we find our greatest joy. That state of being, not an emotion, but a state of being, we are free from the bondage of our own egos and our own minds.
I heard somebody say one time that true happiness is taking care of God's other children. And I heard that and I thought, wow, that's really profound and true. When I do something for you, Joe, and the kids or whoever, I get satisfaction from that more so than if I said to myself, you know what, and I'm going to have a pamper Sharon day. It wouldn't be the same as if I take care of my family.
For me, probably the biggest lesson was I had to learn to love myself. And when God saved me, he saw that I was worthy enough, that he loved me enough, because I know that there was no way I could get out of that. Knowing that God helped and saved me, my whole self-worth is identified. Now that I love myself, I truly can love another person and love others the way I want to be treated, because I have value only because my creator says that I belong here and I'm a part of his plan and I'm a son. So the spiritual warfare is basically self-isolation and pain and torture and not continuing to serve and love. Our job is to love. And when we stop doing that, we get blocked off from the sunlight of the spirit. So I don't know about any of you guys, but I'm still in it. It just has different faces and different situations.
Well, you're aware of reality now. Before it was what's going on? Like confusion was like your everyday, the experience. Now it's okay, yep, all right, here we go again, or this is happening. Dad, what am I supposed to do here? What's happening now? And you have a relationship with God.
Oh, I love, our relationship is solid, man.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's been many times I've been mad at him and I swear and this and that. Later on, I go apologize, but it's a real relationship. And I love it. It's like the best thing that ever happened in my life.
And that's made all the difference, but it wasn't always like that. No. Like it grew, right? Like if you learn a new hobby or something, right? Like I cannot knit, but I did try before. So, you see people and they're whipping up these sweaters and all these things and it looks so fantastic. And I wish I could do that. And meanwhile, I can't even do one row.
It didn't come natural.
But if I practice, and yeah, exactly. So it's like that with anything, right?
Put your time in. Yeah. Like your time is probably our most precious commodity.
Absolutely.
You'll know what your priorities are, where you put your time in. And you guys, I fall short so often, but that's why I don't do it alone. I have you guys, I have Sharon, I have God, like all this behind me. And it's just, life is good. And it wasn't good, guys.
Well, that's what, and that's what Joe and I want to say tonight. There is life after narcissism. There is. Like so many people believe, and I did this too for a long time. So did you, Joe. This is it. Forget the fact that I might have, 30, 40, 50 more years of life. Like I've already done it all. And like, it just, life sucks. That is so far from true. You believe it in the worst circumstances. Yeah.
You can call it what you want. The devil, demon, the lie wants you to believe that. Think about it. If you think about it in a human aspect, the way I believe God wants us to look at it, like father and son, father and daughter relationship, or whatever, what's the best way to give pain to a parent? Like if you knew this parent that had a couple kids, how could you hurt them the most? By freaking with his children.
Yeah.
That's exactly what evil wants. It's just out to seek and destroy and chaos. And what other characteristics you give to a narcissist?
Yeah, I agree with you. I do 100%. But you're right, Joe. There is a solution. The solution that worked for us. And I guess the reality is and this is really what it comes down to. I could have just had the video be 15 seconds long. Evil really exists. God really exists. Spiritual warfare is the battle that we are in. Hope is real. Absolutely, 100%, because I've done it. So have Joe. So we know it's real. All right, sorry, that's Charity. It's her birthday the other day. So Charity's 8 years old. Happy birthday, Charity. But, because we went through all of this.
For all the listeners that don't know, Charity is one of our chickens.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. She's a chicken. So there really is life after narcissism. Hope is real. God is real. Spiritual warfare. You don't have to be afraid of bad things. Just take one step at a time, one day at a time, and make sure that you're praying to God as often as possible.
The turning point, you guys, there was many, but the biggest turning point for me is when there was this voice inside my head. You call it God. It's like after so long of complaining and being in the misery and depression, like when the voice inside my head said, "What was your part in this, Joe?" When I started looking at myself,
Yeah.
and why how do you come up with an excuse? Okay, I allowed myself to be abused for 20 years. Like when I started looking at myself, and I was like, "Holy crap!" I started focusing more. I was more concerned about me and my defects and in the relationship with God. And then the obsession of the narcissist started to decrease as that relationship grew. That was the turning point for me.
And that's the thing, Joe and I, we tell you like the things that really happened for us, that really worked for us, because we want it to work for you. And because this happened to us, we know it can happen to you. So this video is getting super long, but really we're just trying to get across hope is real. If you're with a narcissist right now and you think, never, I'll never get out. Yeah, Sharon, you got out. Or Joe, yeah, you got out. I'm telling you, like, we got out because of God.
We redirected our hope.
Yes.
From the narcissist to God.
Yeah. And if you, and like I said, it's fine if you, even if you don't believe in God, but you want to, or you have, like, you don't think you have a great relationship with God.
Simple. God,
just
I
start
don't know
talking.
if you're out there. I
Just
don't know
start
if you're
talking.
out there, if I'm going nuts or not, but that's what mine, it's the first time I ever did. I don't know if you exist or not, but a close friend of mine that I respect says you do, and he suggested I reach out to you. So if you're there in the universe, please, I'm in desperate need. I'm in pain. I don't want to be here no more. Please help me.
He'll answer you.
He always does.
All right, guys. Thank you for listening to this on Memorial Day. I hope you guys have a great unofficial start to summer. And Joe, what are we going to do tomorrow? I know, but I'll ask you anyways.
We're doing a garden. And one of our famous sayings is, prayer is important, you guys. We're talking about God. You can pray for tomatoes and potatoes and the vegetables all you want, but if you don't get off your ass and do some work and plant them and water them and nurture them, ain't no damn potatoes or tomatoes going to grow. It's a two-way street. It's a two-way relationship. If you do the possible, God will do the impossible.
I love that. That's a perfect way to end. Oh, actually, I'm going to end it slightly longer than that. So Paris and I, we were doing some flowers today. We're planting, and Joe and I are going to do the vegetables tomorrow. So I'll put on the community page pictures of the garden so you guys can tell us what you think.
You guys have a great Memorial Day. Remember, forgive, but don't ever forget.
And remember, one more thing about forgiveness. Forgiveness isn't a feeling, it's a decision. So I hope everybody has a wonderful day, and I will see you on Thursday, because my new schedule, in case you didn't know, Monday, Thursday, I'm trying this temporarily, but I'll see you on Thursday, and Joe will probably be back with me next week, and until then, God bless you.
God bless you guys. Have a great day.